nowadays they sell products to the consumers. Okay, it's primarily a catalog project. Okay, they send out more than 200 million catalogs per year. The setting of the case is a little dated, but the seminal principle is still valid. Okay. Now, when it comes to forecasting, one of the most important topics in supply chain, we have a very new nuance of the context. So traditionally, when you look at the right side, we do product forecasting. We look at estimated demand and see how much of the stock keeping units, SKUs, stock keeping units you're going to sell. Right? What makes the LLP case interesting is we're also simultaneously predicting what gets put into the catalog. So the formal term for these catalogs is called a book. So traditionally you have at least 3 quarters of books, which is one in the fall, one in the summer, and one in the spring. Okay? But depending on your interest, what they will do is, let's say you have an interest in fishing or some outdoor equipment. They also send you customized catalogs, right? And if you're buying a lot of a certain type of outdoor gear, then they do what we call a specialty catalog. So there is time-related catalogs, which is definitely the 3 seasons, and also specialty catalogs, right? And there are at least 10 retail, and they have a huge outlet shop as well in Maine. The founder of this company, LLP, he started to sell this outdoor books, this long books. His very first sale was a return. So LLP is known for a hassle-free return policy. No questions asked, take back anything. Okay. Little late on the e-commerce game, right? But by 2001, they rose to be the 5th largest online book. It's a direct marketer, so it sends directly to you, right? Really through printed catalogs, ancillary retail, and internet operations. More than 200 million catalogs per year. So its market now even more huge today. It's still privately held. I mean, this stats will change. It's probably still making a lot of information about profit. It can only be estimated because it's still privately held. Along with the products, they also offer services. They're very good, by the way, in the measurement. They have an online tool which will measure everything that you have, and they come pretty close to it, having a perfect tailored fit. And even if that doesn't work, no questions asked, you can return it back. Okay? Repair services, something going wrong with the hemming or any part of your garment, you can send it to them and they will take care of it. Getting driving directions, this is not that important, but the outdoors part of it, that providing tips for all the outdoors activities. This is the reason why we're discussing this particular case. Starting very young. So they started what we call as the outdoor discovery schools. With people going to high school and middle school, they're sending them on mountaineering camps, or just camps in the wilderness and so on, and teaching them camp skills and so on. So more than 4.5 million customers, prints more than 200 million catalogs per year, and each catalog cost can range between 50 cents to $1 largest expense, because some of them, most of them are color-coded. I don't think they have a monochrome catalog at all. And most books generate 75 to 80% of the revenue within the 40 days of the bill. So after 40 days, you're probably not very big, because you probably toss the catalog. The internet sales are little predictable. Average catalog slightly, and a web customer slightly younger, 40 years old. It could be a differentiation between outdoor enthusiasts and the rest of the customer base. All right. The emails within 4 hours, orders by, they're very good in customer service, very pleasant people in customer support, many other contexts you may have faced. and the lifetime value of their customers are 30% greater than the average. So they leave you with a very pleasing customer experience so that you want to keep buying from them. Okay, this is the most important reason why we are discussing this particular case. When you do on this side, the stock keeping unit side, you do it based on merchandising group. Talk about the book forecast a little later on. So the merchandising group is broadly men's apparel, women's apparel, and then the demand centers means that you take the women's apparel and further bifurcate that into shirts, pants, sweaters, jackets. The next level, so it starts with merchandise group, the next level is demand center, then it's called the item sequence. So what we did here is we took the sweaters and we further classified the sweaters into three kinds: cardigans, turtleneck, and pullovers. And finally, you put in the color. So items means turtleneck, which we pull from there, and these are strange colors, I've never heard of them. Azure, eggshell, and heather. So three colors, right? So when you look at the permutation combination, I know we have some people in math here. You can run the permutation combination, you can see how many options are there, starting from the merchandise group to the items. Extremely difficult to forecast. So the common things we know about forecasting is that higher level of aggregation, maybe we should. So what we know so far in our 100 years of forecasting is, higher the level of aggregation, less the error. So if you ask the forecaster what will be the error rate for predicting men's apparel next year, the error will not be that high compared to if you ask the same person to forecast turtleneck with azure or eggshell or heather color. That's one. Number two is mixed models tend to work better than single models. What I mean by mixed models is several judgmental mechanisms. So what can you do? First is of course gut feel, intuition and gut feel. Then you can do some time series. You can do some decomposition methods, and then you can do causal. I'm not even going into all the Monte Carlo simulations and all the other fun stuff that you can do. But what I'm trying to drive at here is that if I did based on one method alone, the errors are going to then I mixed and matches. Okay? And the reason, if you're curious about this, the reason is because the frame of reference is different. Okay? The frame of reference tends to be different. The third one is long term versus short term. Long term is harder to predict, short term is relatively easier. So the longer the time horizon, the more difficult the forecasting exercises, and it is more likely to be making errors. Okay? The second thing related to the case is the difference between top-down and bottom-up forecasting. So I'll explain this with this slide alone. When you take all these demand managers, the ones who are in charge for item level ones, they can predict what the forecast is for next year. And when you add them up and roll them up to the company level, that is bottom up. Okay? Bottom up is starting from item and leading up to the merchandise group. As you may imagine, these buyers, they develop expertise over the years. So they become very good at it. The buyers for the men's group are men's apparel experts in that. ones in women's apparel are experts in that, and then so on and so forth, the shirts, pants, sweaters, and jackets. Top down is slightly different. What is that looks at economic factors. So if you say that today I have like a 10 million sales, aggregate level, all the companies, right? So what we do is we make an estimation that how is the market going to increase. I'm bringing the number here 10%. That means when you start looking at the state of the economy, inflation, recession, disposable income levels of the consumers, and so on. All the major economic factors, come with an estimate and say that this is 11 million, right? So top down looks at economic factors. Bottom up starts from the ground level and builds up to the aggregate. So my question to you is, are these two likely to agree or not agree? Will there be a difference? If I do top down and bottom up, am I likely to have a difference in the numbers or no? Will it be exactly the same? Negligible. No, again look at the frame of reference. In the left hand side, the frame of reference is at the economy level. Economic factors. Okay? Disposable income, is the economy growing, all that types of stuff. But this is true product information. This looks at the demand cycles of each product. It will be coincidental if they agree, right? They're not likely to agree, right? Pardon? The bottom up is more precise? You're saying bottom up is more precise? Well, yes and no. It need not be the case. If you have terrible buying people with a lot of bad forecasting records, there can be a big difference. But I understand that the economic things are even more harder to predict, right? So my question to you is, what do you do with the differences? This came out to be 11 million, and let's say bottom up came out to be 10 million. So now I have a $1 million difference. What do I do with it? Because this is likely to happen year after year. The bottom up will be different from the top up. Well, I'll tell you what I have been did, and this is probably the simplest way to do it. They adjusted the difference across all the goods, the same goods, because it was not worth doing the minutiae of trying to split hairs and see how much to allocate to you. Okay? So globally, they took the things and they apportioned it across the different levels, merchandise groups, demand centers, item sequences, and items. Okay? So L.L. Bean talks about not only how to do catalog forecasting, but they also talk about top-down and bottom-up. Okay? Item level errors are very high. And in a single season ordering, and I'll show you the season, it gets very complicated because the life cycle is like more than a year from the time you plan for the catalog till the time that the launch takes place. Did you say cold? Remote is okay. You can just put your hand up there. Okay, so single season ordering, long cycle times, which I will show you. And what they tend to do based on previous, think of it. Now let's get to the a typical catalog is a 30-page book. Okay? Now you have to start filling this catalog with placements. Think of this as the shelf life of a retailer, right? There is some retail space which is very premium. Am I right? This is called the eye of control, eye of vision, rack space. So in most brick and mortar, in most retail stores which are brick and mortar, the eye of vision items are the ones where the suppliers are given preferential treatment, right? When you know that it will surely sell, and the idea is when you look at it, you're going to, want to buy it, right? Now the equivalent of the IO Vision rack space is the 30-page book. Now you start filling it up, okay? So this is like limited shelf space because you have only 30 pages. So which products will you put first and which products will you put next? How would you place a product advertisement to fill up a 30-page book which you're about to roll out? And I'll tell you how far in advance when I show you the slide, okay? You're about to roll out to the customers in the hope that they will buy it, in the hope that they will sell, okay? So what does intuition tell you? If I'm going to start using the 30-page book, what would I put? Which items would I put first? Premium items? Pardon? Essential items? What do you mean by essential items? I mean, what is essential to you is not essential to me. So that gives you a hint of what you'll place. The sure items, the ones which has got past historical record of selling. Okay? That is called the never out. Okay? So the never out would be the ones which have assured to have sold year after year after year. So you will minimize your risk by placing them into the catalog. Okay? Can I place all of them? So you will need to leave some space for the innovative ones. Otherwise, how would you build history? Okay? Okay, so on the positive side, we are looking at established sales and we are looking at some new product innovations to see if the customer will buy it. And we have different types of categories, right? Now, on the opposite side, so this is the runaways. The runaways ones is like always succeeding. Never out means it's always placed in the catalogs, right? And what are the dogs? As the name suggests, the dogs are the ones which was a deadbeat. We didn't sell anything of that, right? So that comes out. That comes out of the catalog. New products enter it. Okay. Now, a situation called the type 1 and type 2 error. You're never going to get it right. You won't be getting it exactly right. Okay? So, if you order too much and the demand is not there, you incur inventory costs, right? Which you have to discount in the next season and so on. But if you don't order enough and there was a demand, you lose on the profit from the sale. Okay? That's called the backorder cost. What they found in this industry is that both of them were huge. You're making a type 1 error and a type 2 error, either ordering too many or too little. Okay? So that's why we take a look at this intuitive things like never out and runaway success as the ones which will mitigate this type of type 1 and type 2 error. Okay? So cascading from top down as well as bottom up. I explained that to you. Okay? The differences are resolved by a blanket adjustment, like this $1 million blanket adjustment. Okay? Item SKU distribution is done by size, and then, as I'm going to show you in the table in a minute, you place your initial order very much in advance, and then wait for the season to happen to adjust further orders. Okay? So items tend to be never out versus new, and as I said, there is a spring, fall, and even an all-year catalog. Look at the planning cycle. Okay? So we took one example here, fall 1991. The initial concept of the book, the catalog, starts in October. Okay? Then there is a preliminary forecast made. So imagine this, both sides are going on in parallel. I'm planning the book and I'm also doing the product forecast. Okay? So I do a preliminary forecast and I start placing my initial purchasing commitments. Okay? In the same time in January, I'm laying out the books, the pagination, how many books, how many pages in the book, what I'm going to place in that and so on, right? And then by March, I'm making the revision of the item forecast again by book. Okay, I adjust it for type 1 or type 2 error. Now at some point of time, I made my initial forecast, the suppliers trying to make the stuff for me and all, and most of them are in China and so on, right? At some point of time, you have to freeze the forecast. I cannot keep changing the forecast all the time. You have to give enough time for the supplier to build the product. I'm going to explain to you in this concept a conceptual principle called postponement. And because this is a global scenario, you can see how complicated. Okay, let's say you're building a new model of a car. A new model of a car has a typical product life cycle of about I have the company trying to collect information from this. Okay, so the 3-year cycle, I can do two things. If I froze the design over here, what happens? I gain one thing, but I lose one thing. What I gain is I'm able to capture a lot of the market information from the customers because I'm getting point of sale data all the time, I'm getting a lot of customer information. What do I lose? Now I have, assuming this is like 30 months, I only have 6 months to build the car. There is very much a chance that I'll be late. I'll be delayed, right? Now, what is the other possibility I can do? Early design phase. So what I just showed is delayed product differentiation or postponement. When I postpone the design freezing so I can collect a lot of market voice, then I'm practicing delayed product differentiation. If I do early design freeze, what happens is I have enough time to product, okay, but I'm not capturing actual customer information. There's a good chance that there might be defects, or maybe the customer may not want what you're building. Okay, same thing over here. In your catalog, what happens is that you need to somewhere have an optimal level of freezing the forecast, so the suppliers have enough time to ship the stuff so that you can sell it to your customers. Okay, so from March to August, additional commitments are continuously given to the vendors who are global. Their scheduled replenishments, any back orders are also planned, and so on. By July, the first black and white catalog comes out. In August, the catalog is in the customer's hands. And post-season, in January 1992, that the whole action of discounting, markdowns, liquidations, and promotions are carried out. And this cycle continues all the time. This is the challenge of doing catalog forecasting. Okay, so the timelines involved of planning the cycle is something that I wanted to share. Okay, before we go to the next case about sport over man, I want to set the stage for another conceptual principle called accurate response. It's kind of related to the discussion we had so far, that the need for accurate sales forecast is important because our suppliers are not only overseas, but there's competition going on between one supplier and the other. So if you don't get, this is the lock-in effect, going back to the Elgin case. If I don't lock in my order, what is going to happen? They're going to take their capacity and give it to some other customer. So it is important to get that timing right. Okay? And product development means you're trying to make the sales forecasting for so many products. And I talked to you about this, the type 1 and type 2 error. The cost of inaccurate forecast, stockouts and markdowns, both are expensive, running into millions of dollars, right? So what people have done is, they said, well, the traditional way of solving this problem will not work. People used to use MRP, manufacturing resource planning, which was simply something which, like I was talking about the freezing of the demand, that you keep sending out orders to the suppliers based on the master production schedule. So the rolling down from the finished product level to the item level, you keep making those delivery orders, right? They said that is not going to work. Quick response in GIT requires capacity. Suppliers may not be flexible, they may be global. For example, Dell suppliers had some problems with that. So they came up with a solution in the retailing industry called accurate response. So the accurate response means that you can postpone, okay, this is the idea. You take the demand and you segment it into this. You take your overall demand and you say, can I segment this into predictable and unpredictable demand? What is the predictable segment? So in the LLP case, the ones which were sure orders, that if year you get a mean of a certain level, which you know you can sell, are the predictable segment. And in the predictable segment, you are able to give early commitment orders. So the suppliers can, lock in their capacity and all that. But after the selling season starts, you are patching up. You are trying to make incremental orders and so on. They are highly unpredictable. You're still making a prediction. You're still saying, okay, this will sell. And it's quite likely that after the selling season, you may not be able to sell. So the cost, and people have, by the way, this creates another problem because we're not able to find the cost of a stock up. It's interesting, in LLB you can, because if a customer visits your website and finds that it's not there, you've captured that event, and so you know what's the cost of the stock up. In a retail setting, it's much more difficult, okay? So how do I make supply chains fast and flexible? So it affects the supply chain design and the product design, and this leads to the principle of better matching supply with demand. You'll see a lot about this when you look at the sport overmile case, and it lowers the mismatch cost and decreases the price. Okay, so you know a little bit about the accurate response strategy that we practice. Okay, the companies doing accurate responses are our good old friend LL Bean, Sports Overmile, which we'll discuss now, and all other companies which are pretty famous, which tried out this particular strategy. Okay, still perceived forecast is a representation of reality, and accurate forecasting is complex. Global accurate forecasting even more difficult, and there has been a recent increase in demand uncertainty because you could have, as I tell my students, you could have a supplier problem or you could have a demand problem, and companies who are not very good in both have both problems. So there's a supply unreliability and your forecasts are all over the place. Okay, and frequent introduction of new products compounds this problem. The product life cycle reducing compounds this problem, and the demand being dispersed over finer groupings of stock keeping units also creates an over and under supply problems in many industries. Okay? So the implementation of this accurate response led to profits by many of these companies which implemented this. Complex supply chains with production scheduling were made 1 year in advance, like LL Bean, and the introduction of computer order processing, so it's easier to place orders. You can have e-purchasing and pre-positioning the raw materials. So like Dell will keep all their monitors stocked right by the Austin plant so that they always have the raw materials, right? And expediting shipments to distribution centers in the selling season, okay? So this is what they did. And I'll tell you details about this case, but as we talk about this particular article, it segmented the demand into predictable demand and unpredictable demand. The predictable demand was fulfilled to the early right program. So there would be trade fairs where they would come and showcase their products, just keyword products, and the retailers would write early orders, okay, and lock in the capacity. Now, there's a very intriguing process going on in our good old friend forecasting. I bring to you remember, I told you multiple methods are better than single methods. That multiple methods can also mean multiple buyers. So rather than having one buyer make a forecast, you can have a buying committee. So the buying committee was supposed to forecast how much the demand will be for the next selling season. Okay, they came up with a very interesting proposition. This is a very simple statistical term that we call as coefficient of variation. Coefficient of variation is what the standard deviation over the mean. What they found with respect to forecasting is, let's say you have buyers, B1, B2, B3, B4 and B5. If their forecast had very little variation, okay, they were all like 10, 11, 10, 10, 11, had very little variation amongst them, since your sigma should be low and your mu should also be high, your CV should be low. If you look at the apparel industry, it's one of the most complicated industry to manage because it's inherently global. If you start from the company over here, Sportable Man, they predominantly do three things: marketing, design, and new product innovations. Of which the new product innovations and design is actually done in the German office. So there is a Europe presence to it. Okay? Then it started working with this joint venture company called Obersport. Obersport is in China and Hong Kong. And this is roughly called a contract manufacturer, which you see in many industries, okay? They do the contract management and manufacturing for all the products I want, okay? Although the case doesn't detail this in detail, I can show you a slide which talks about what happens in the upstream supplier industry. So they in turn manage all the suppliers, different suppliers. So the roles are perfectly coordinated, and that's why this is called global supply chain coordination issue. So if you ask Sportable Man what your job is, they'll say I'm interested in going to the trade show, making sure our presence is there. We show our wares, we show our design, our proficiency, we do marketing, we work with retailers, and I can extend the supply chain to put in the customers and the retailers as well. You know, they are the stores and then you and I, okay? But this will suffice because it shows the upstream complexity of managing this particular supply chain. This box, by the way, the supplier box over there is huge. We're talking about buttons and zippers and all kinds of things which go into a particular apparel. Do you want to be in that business of managing that headache? Sportable said no. So I'll let you do this, and that was the role of the Obersport. Okay, so they had a joint venture between Obersport and the Sportable Man. All right. Then we got to the forecast methodology. We covered most of these points. There is a combination of speculation, intuition, and experience. We talked about the joint forecast, which is preferred compared to individual forecast, and with greater product variety and intense competition is much more difficult. Then we also talked about the two seasons, early and then late. So early seasons is you want to put all your safe styles and commit to that. Late seasons is after the selling season happens. You're kind of rushing around to make that particular happen. Okay? So how do I resolve the discrepancies in the forecast of independent members? Coefficient of variation. I showed you that methodology as well. Now it has an added complication. The Hong Kong factory is much more productive than the Chinese factory. So how much will you allocate between the two countries too is something that you need to consider. Okay? So this fashion ski wear industry, the whole season lasts only 2 to 3 months. So everything, the global supply chain coordination should orchestrate fantastically to make that thing happen. Okay? Because if you don't have enough products, then you lose the revenue. And if you have too much products, you have to discount it in the next season. So the orders and qualifiers for these particular products are price is the order qualifier because their customers are not that price sensitive, especially the avid skiers. Design is important, quality is important, and then capacity and capability of the suppliers are important. Delivery speed, it had better come in time before the season starts. Otherwise, you don't have anything to wear, right? Product life cycles are getting shorter and shorter, and retailers are the immediate customers for the sport overman. Now, the fascinating thing on the retailers too. These days, you can buy some of these basic ski wears in sporting goods shops, even in Walmart. Okay, and this is really the trick of planning. Supposing you either forget it or you are just rushing on to the snow hills to start your seasons, right? You can buy it there also. But guess what? There it will be very expensive. Because now they know you have no other choice. You already come all the way over there. And so there is a channel issue also in terms of what used to be a specialty store and a channel is no longer so. Okay, unless you're thinking about really high-end stuff where you may still have to go to some specialty stores. Otherwise, it's not needed to do so, right? Problem definition is to first commit, forecast, and determine for the next season how much of that will be early, how much of that will be late, how much will be allocated to China, how much of that will be allocated to Hong Kong, right? So there should be an alignment between your global supply chain coordination issues and your operation issues. So if I can improve my forecasting, which means getting point of sale data, and even though I'm in the reactive capacity mode, I still get better quality information, so I can place good orders. Then I can reduce the risk of stockouts and excessive inventory. Like LL Bean, the planning cycle starts really early. Okay, the first order of business, I told you that the design show is from Germany. They get all this fashionable designs which they want to put in front of the Las Vegas trade show. So the design team comes and they bring their wares, they come to Las Vegas, they show it off, the design concepts are finalized, and Obersport starts prototype production, samples, then they refine the designs. This is again the design freezing thing. At some point in time they have to freeze the design. The production of sample garments are shown to the retailers, and the retailers place the first orders. Okay, so they forecast the initial production based on bill of material arrived and the requirements, that is requirements is demand. Okay, then the cutting and the showing begins. I'll show you this chart, that how complicated it is. Okay, they pick the retailer orders from the Las Vegas trade show, constitute the second and final string of orders. 80% of the production volume is attained by now, and the remainder orders is between April and May. Now you have to ship it by a much more expensive source, right? Previously you could have gone from ship, right? So, but what you fall short and you see that the demand is evolving, I have to air ship it, and that's going to make it very expensive. You've just been in time for the season, and then retailers still continue to place replenishment order for the popular items, right? And then starts the discounting season, just like LL Bean. The unsold goods are sold at deep discounts. Okay, let me show you the supply chain. Alright, I'm going to open this box over here, the supplier box over here. Think of all the things which should happen to orchestrate the supply chain. First is we have a marketing company, Sport Overman, and then we have Obersport, the joint venture, Chinese venture. They are in charge of all of these guys. So look at these component suppliers, zippers, and pay attention to the lead times. Zippers take 60 to 90 days. Other component materials, inventory, local dyeing, 15 to 30 days. Cutting and sewing happens both in Hong Kong and China. Finishing 135 to 210 days. That's a whopping 210 days. Okay. Printing subcontractors, 45 to 60 days. Fabric suppliers, both shell and lining, is 45 to 60 days, and then the procurement takes another 45, 90 days. So it is very clear in the chart that you would like to minimize the lead time, because all of these have to come together in a product. If I have, look, what's the one which takes the most? Forget finishing. Finishing is where you got your finishing fabric. But what comes into that are all the raw materials and components, right? We have 90 days, 60 days, 60 days, 90 days, 30 days, and so on. Both the procurement of fabric suppliers and the zippers take 90 days. If I can reduce that lead time, I can make more, right? I don't have to wait for that particular supply to come in. So now you see the role of lead time reduction and the powerful strategic advantages you can get, and plus this is in the global scenario. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Okay. High demand uncertainty, limited non-existing data, especially for the new product. The impact of uncertainty is, as I just told you, is increased due to long production lead time, wide range of products. It gets even more complicated. The suppliers ask for a minimum production quantity. Remember, this is the capacity appointment system, right? If I have an installed capacity of 100,000, I would rather fill it with 1 or 2 orders from that than to work with multiple customers, right? So they will insist on a minimum production quantity for you to even be accepted. So this is another news vendor problem thing, that it's costly to produce products that do not sell, and it's costly not to produce products that sell. So over and above the minimum production quantity limitation, you are supposed to take into account the news vendor settings. All right. Many of you ask me about Indian companies very frequently, so I'm going to tell you the story of Madura Gandhi. As they're in the same industry, and they have just as a complicated supply chain as this, and even more, because they are a preferred contract manufacturer of leading brands, both European and American, right? You have Louis Philippe, Van Heusen, Peter England, Alan Solly, so both American and European ones, right? It's one of the leading apparel and retailing companies here in the country, and as you know, owned by the private Birla Group, and they have their own storefronts as well, Planet Fashion in Trouser Town, and franchises all over India. To show you how powerful they are, they have invested in vertical integration. Vertical integration is to own the source up to the intermediate and the finished goods. So they have finished goods stores like Planet Fashion and so on, but they have invested in the raw material source too, like worsted yarn, wool from Australia, linen fabrics. Here are the services that they provide: tailoring, exports, and we talked about it, contract manufacturing for big companies. They sell both branded retail as well as fashion wear, which means all the accessories as well. Okay. So although many of the trade barriers in the global textile industry is gone, still import duty remains. Okay. This is called crossing the loop, and very common in many apparel supply chains. So what they do is they look for sources which have either zero duty or very low duty. So they get their cotton from Egypt, Bangladesh, and Mauritius, zero traffic, okay? And this itself leads to a 28% cost advantage. So normally it's a very complicated law, and I don't claim to be an expert in this. The place that you finally put the finishing touches is where you get levied your import duty or excise duty. I mean, every country is different. That's why it's not uncommon for you to find shirts made in Dominican Republic and of course Bangladesh and all that. It is definitely, I'm not saying a large part, but it has a tax reason. All right. So there was an interesting example of Louis Philippe. It turns out that the textile shirt itself has a lot of technology in it. The process to make it wrinkle-free is owned by a Japanese company, and they still pay. Every company obviously needs this particular product. They pay a patent fee to this particular company. The fabric is given to Indonesia and Thailand vendors who make the shirt and is sold to export markets in US and to retail. So this is a crisscross of the global supply chain I was just indicating.
The rapid response concepts and engaged with export movement. Any questions on anything in the post-trade session? Any questions? Okay, tomorrow, just to give you the heads up, not only will be I understand that we are having a guest speaker who's going to talk about life cycle cost assessment. And so I had planned to discuss several tools tomorrow. We're getting to the tools portion of the course. A simple carbon footprint exercise. We'll be talking about ISO 14000. We'll be talking about total cost of ownership. And I'll see how this afternoon sessions go, and I'll try not to overlap with him on LC, on life cycle cost. Okay? And on Friday, as you know, there are two more announcements I will do. On Friday, I will show you some sample projects that I've done. Okay? And that may help you in formulating what you want to do. I will revisit the guidelines document on the project. Most important thing is, if you're not already done so, please revise your learning about value stream. Every team should do value stream, along with environmental measures. Okay? So I shared two handouts with you. Read both the handouts, including the one with the environmental measures. Right? So get up to speed on that. Last announcement is, it is tentative right now. Professor Kilgore will tell you. I think he's looking towards a date of Tuesday or Wednesday for your final exam for this course. Okay? I have already shared with him, which I don't know if he's sent to you yet, a study guide. A study guide for how to study for the exam. There are 4 cases that I would like you to read. Okay? So let me, out of my memory, let me try to recall what is on the study guide. First thing, most important, bring your laptops. Because your answers will be recorded electronically and emailed to you. Okay? And I'll be grading it once a return. Okay? Second thing is 4 cases. They are mentioned in the harvest, hayward, McDonald's, and 4 cases. You are allowed 2 pages. So it's not entirely closed book. You are allowed to write anything on 2 pages for your notes and bring it to the exam. Okay? So the exam will be timed for 2 hours. Okay? So this is all I know so far. He will tell you the date. I think he said Tuesday or Wednesday. Any questions? I'll make sure that the study guide is sent you.
Exams will be like on objective types, or like how will be the exams?
I have given it in the study guide. I told you I have written what type of questions I tend to ask. They are mainly short answer questions. Okay? I gave you like 3 examples of typical questions.